It sounds absurd today, but in classic Hollywood, nothing was too strange for a celebrity pitch. The silver screen's biggest icons didn't just act. They sold everything from cigarettes to cereal, sometimes with a wink, sometimes with a straight face. What could possibly make Hollywood's brightest stars shill for antacids, soap, or even yeast? Is the truth that fame and money made the oddest pairings seem perfectly natural? Or is there something even stranger beneath the surface? Stick around, because one of these endorsements reveals a side of Golden Age Hollywood that ad men never wanted you to see. Lucille Ball, Philip Morris Cigarettes. It's hard to imagine the queen of wholesome comedy, Lucille Ball, lending her image to cigarettes. But in the early 1950s, that's exactly what happened. In one of the most curious product tie-ins in television history, Ball and her husband Desi Arnaz signed a lucrative sponsorship deal with Philip Morris, the tobacco company behind one of America's best-selling cigarette brands. This wasn't just a series of ads. They wove Philip Morris directly into I Love Lucy, from the show's props to actual dialogue. The brand's iconic bellboy even made appearances in early episodes. For millions of viewers, the image of Lucy Ricardo smiling next to a cigarette pack became part of the sitcom's DNA. At the time, nobody blinked. Cigarettes were still seen as sophisticated, even doctor-approved. But as smoking's dangers came to light, the collaboration took on a darker tone. Biographers later suggested Ball became uneasy with the arrangement, but contracts ruled the screen. Today, it stands as one of TV's strangest and most ironic product placements. Mae West, Lux Toilet Soap. In 1934, Mae West was Hollywood's reigning queen of controversy, a woman whose every glance, word, and wiggle dripped with double entendre and scandal. She was brash, unapologetic, and wildly successful. That's why it shocked so many when Lux Toilet Soap, a brand typically associated with squeaky clean ingenues and the so-called good girls of Hollywood, signed West as their new face. It wasn't just surprising, it was a statement. Her sultry stare and platinum blonde curls were soon splashed across national print ads, inviting women not just to be clean, but to be unforgettable. Behind the scenes, West negotiated tough, fully aware of her marketability. Critics worried Lux was risking its wholesome brand identity, but sales said otherwise. The gamble worked. Lux retained its spot atop the beauty market, and Mae West proved that scandal could be seductive, even in a soap ad. Her campaign redefined what femininity could look like in American advertising and showed that sometimes controversy sells better than conformity. Betty Grable, Chesterfield Cigarettes. Betty Grable's girl-next-door persona made her a national sweetheart during World War II, with her iconic pinup photo famously tucked into the duffel bags of American soldiers overseas. She represented wholesomeness, optimism, and classic American beauty. That's exactly why her appearance in Chesterfield cigarette ads felt so jarringly out of place. In full Technicolor charm, Grable smiled through glossy magazine pages with a cigarette delicately perched between her fingers. Chesterfield leaned into her massive popularity, positioning smoking as not just glamorous, but patriotic, something even your favorite wartime sweetheart enjoyed. It was brilliant marketing and deeply misleading. Nobody questioned it at the time. The connection between smoking and health hadn't yet entered public consciousness. But decades later, when the dangers of smoking were widely exposed, critics began to see the campaign in a different light. Grable's image had been used to sugarcoat a deadly habit, a striking example of how even the cleanest icons could be co-opted to sell something toxic. Ronald Reagan, Chesterfield Cigarettes. Long before he became the 40th President of the United States, Ronald Reagan was a Hollywood leading man with a clean-cut, all-American image. That made his stint as a cigarette pitchman in the late 1940s all the more surreal. Reagan appeared in glossy print ads and smooth-voiced radio spots for Chesterfield, a brand that leaned heavily into celebrity endorsements to boost its image. With his confident smile and wholesome appeal, Reagan touted Chesterfield's charm, refinement, and vitality, a strange trio of words for something that slowly destroyed lungs. The ads stopped short of making health claims, but they danced dangerously close, hinting that Chesterfield was the discerning smoker's smart, safe choice. The irony became sharper years later, when Reagan, by then in public office, supported early anti-smoking campaigns. Seeing his youthful face beneath a puff of smoke remains a striking time capsule from an era when Hollywood stars and tobacco companies walked hand in hand, and few people paused to question the cost of the glamour. Shirley Temple, Quaker puffed wheat. Shirley Temple was America's sweetheart, the bouncing, dimple-cheeked child star who brought smiles to Depression-era audiences. So naturally, advertisers were eager to cash in on her massive appeal. In 1935, at just 7 years old, Temple became the face of Quaker puffed wheat and puffed rice cereals. Her image appeared on cereal boxes, in print ads, and across radio waves, often accompanied by cheerful jingles and pre-recorded spots featuring her own voice. But behind the charm was an awkward truth. Biographers later noted that Temple didn't even like the cereal. Despite this, the campaign was a commercial triumph. However, not everyone was charmed. Some critics voiced concern over the ethics of using a child star to pitch sugary cereals to Today, her campaign is viewed as both pioneering and unsettling, a crystal clear example of early child celebrity branding that blurred the line between fame and advertising, long before such tactics became standard marketing practice. Buster Keaton, Alka-Seltzer. Buster Keaton, the stoic genius of silent film, was famous for daredevil stunts and his expressionless, great stone face. So when the 1950s TV audience saw Keaton pitching Alka-Seltzer, it was pure culture shock. Instead of defying gravity or escaping collapsing houses, he was now on screen, uncomfortably delivering lines about battling indigestion. Keaton's foray into commercials wasn't about artistic evolution, it was about survival. The silent era had collapsed, talkies took over, and even icons needed to pay the bills. Fans found it surreal to watch their fearless idol struggle with a bottle of antacid, and many viewed the spot with a mix of nostalgia and sorrow. Yet, over time, Keaton's Alka-Seltzer ad has become a cult favorite, evidence that even the greatest talents are sometimes at the mercy of the times, finding humor, humility, and maybe a little heartbreak in a bottle of fizzy relief. Groucho Marx, DeSoto Automobiles. If ever there was a face built for lampooning consumer culture, it was Groucho Marx. Yet in the early 1950s, audiences got the jarring spectacle of Groucho as an actual car salesman, pushing DeSoto Automobiles on You Bet Your Life. The network, hungry for sponsorships, embedded the DeSoto pitch so deeply that it practically became part of the show's DNA, sometimes even more than Groucho's famous wisecracks. Groucho himself reportedly joked in private that pitching cars wasn't quite what he'd envisioned for his career. But in typical Groucho fashion, he leaned into the awkwardness, blending advertising and comedy until the audience couldn't tell where the act stopped and the ad began. The partnership stands as one of the first and weirdest mashups of highbrow comedy and relentless commercialism, a sign that even the sharpest wit in Hollywood couldn't always dodge the sales pitch. Frank Sinatra, Chesterfield Cigarettes. Long before he earned the nickname Old Blue Eyes, Frank Sinatra was the embodiment of effortless cool, making him a natural fit for the smoky allure of Chesterfield cigarette ads in the 1940s. These campaigns capitalized on his rising stardom, showing Sinatra mid-performance, suit perfectly tailored, a cigarette casually balanced in his hand. The imagery was carefully crafted. If Sinatra smoked Chesterfields, they must be smooth, sophisticated, and just dangerous enough to be desirable. The ads stopped short of health claims, but suggested a link between elegance and the act of lighting up. While there's no record of Sinatra ever singing a jingle for Chesterfield, his visual presence alone carried the message loud and clear. In an era when smoking was still framed as a lifestyle choice rather than a medical risk, his involvement helped glamorize what was already a deeply embedded social habit. Decades later, as warnings and lawsuits mounted, these ads began to look far less cool and far more hauntingly ironic. Marlene Dietrich, Lux Soap. Few stars embodied mystique like Marlene Dietrich, with her icy glamour and perfectly sculpted cheekbones. So when Lux Soap, famous for pitching itself to everyday homemakers, recruited Dietrich in the early 1930s, it turned heads. The campaign avoided the bubbly girl-next-door angle, and instead doubled down on Dietrich's otherworldly appeal. Gauzy photos, dramatic poses, and copy that suggested you could borrow just a little of her allure with every bar of soap. Dietrich insisted on controlling her image, making sure every ad reflected her cinematic presence. The result was both strange and striking. A soap ad that felt more like a Hollywood portrait. While Lux claimed almost every star in Tinseltown used their soap, Dietrich's campaign made it feel glamorous, exclusive, and a bit out of reach. It's remembered as one of the earliest moments when advertising used pure star power to sell ordinary things. Laurel and Hardy, Gillette razors. Laurel and Hardy, the kings of slapstick, were beloved for their wild physical gags and lovable chemistry. But in the mid-1940s, they became unlikely spokesmen for Gillette razors. Their commercial spots were a spectacle. Razors flying, shaving cream disasters, and Stan Laurel's wide-eyed confusion turned into a sales pitch. For fans, it was odd to see silent-era icons promoting a men's grooming brand. But Gillette knew what it was doing, using comedy to create a sense of everyday connection. The campaign marked a turning point as humor began to seep into advertising, with celebrities embodying products rather than simply endorsing them. Behind the scenes, not all was smooth. Rumors swirled that Hardy's sensitive skin suffered under all that foam. Still, the partnership was a hit, and collectors today still hunt for vintage Laurel and Hardy razor ads, a testament to when Hollywood's funniest duo helped sell the closest shave in town. Bing Crosby, Minute Maid Orange Juice. By the early 1950s, Bing Crosby was America's voice of comfort, an icon of smooth tunes and fireside nostalgia. That's why it felt so surreal when Crosby suddenly popped up singing jingles for Minute Maid Orange Juice. Fans, used to hearing White Christmas and Velvet Ballads, now saw Bing energetically endorsing frozen concentrated orange juice on TV and radio. The campaign was a head-scratcher. Why would one of Hollywood's top crooners lend his reputation to a breakfast beverage? Yet that was the magic of the era. If you were famous, your face and voice were valuable real estate for brands looking to stand out. Minute Maid's bet paid off. Crosby's approachable charm helped propel the product into American households, though it remains a curious chapter in his legacy. Even today, it's proof that in classic Hollywood, the line between entertainment and advertising was thinner than most people realize. John Wayne, Camel cigarettes. John Wayne's on-screen persona was all grit, gravel, and uncompromising masculinity. So, it made a certain 1940s ad logic to have him hawk Camel cigarettes, even if, in hindsight, it's more than a little troubling. In vintage print ads, Wayne credited Camels for keeping his throat in good shape after long hours on movie sets. The implication was that real men, cowboys, soldiers, and tough guys smoked Camels to stay steady. Wayne's endorsement was everywhere, from magazines to movie theater slides, and it resonated. Yet the irony is unmistakable. Wayne would later develop cancer and lose a lung, a reality that retroactively casts a long shadow over those old ads. For all the rugged imagery, his Camel campaign now stands as a cautionary time capsule, showing how Hollywood's greatest tough guy was enlisted to glamorize a deadly habit. Clark Gable, Lux Soap. Clark Gable, forever immortalized as Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind, was known for his roguish charm and masculine magnetism. So, it might come as a surprise to see his image splashed across Lux Soap advertisements in the 1930s and 1940s. The king of Hollywood, pitching a beauty product? It happened. Gable's clean-cut good looks and star power were used to make Lux feel universal, not just a women's brand, but something every American could aspire to. Some print ads even featured Gable relaxing in a bath, surrounded by bubbles, selling the idea that even the most dashing men in Hollywood used Lux for freshness. It was a strategic move that helped the soap reach an even broader audience. While the pairing seemed odd, it ultimately proved how much sway a star could have, even in the beauty aisle. Joan Crawford, Pepsi-Cola. Joan Crawford's connection to Pepsi-Cola wasn't just a one-off endorsement. It was practically a second act in her career. After marrying Pepsi's CEO, Alfred Steele, in the 1950s, Crawford became the face of the brand, appearing in print ads, making public appearances, and even sitting in on board meetings. Her persona shifted from silver screen icon to corporate ambassador, and she took her Pepsi duties seriously. Crawford's glamorous presence at soda fountains and public events added star power to the soft drinks image, even as she leveraged her business acumen to help steer company decisions. Some people found it odd, Hollywood royalty promoting soda to teenagers. But for Crawford, it was a way to stay in the limelight and redefine her brand. Her Pepsi chapter is a fascinating glimpse into how a screen legend used commercial endorsement. Gene Autry, Sanka Coffee. Gene Autry, the original singing cowboy, could sell just about anything to his legion of fans, so perhaps it was only natural that he ended up pitching Sanka Coffee. What's odd is that Sanka was, and still is, famous for being decaffeinated, hardly the drink you'd expect to fuel a Wild West adventure. Yet, Autry crooned about Sanka's smooth, rich flavor in both print and radio ads, making decaf seem like the preferred choice of trailblazers everywhere. It's a classic case of image meeting marketing. If Sanka was good enough for America's favorite cowboy, it must be good enough for anyone. The endorsement ran for years, cementing Autry not just as a Western hero, but as a trusted voice at the American breakfast table. Looking back, it's an odd but memorable twist in the tale of Cowboy Cool. Fred Astaire, Chesterfield Cigarettes. Fred Astaire, a master of elegance and effortless dance, was never far from a tuxedo or a wry smile. But during the height of his fame, he took a surprising detour, endorsing Chesterfield cigarettes. Ads showed Astaire, always the picture of refinement, extolling the mildness and satisfaction of Chesterfields. The oddity? Astaire was famous for his incredible stamina and lifelong commitment to fitness, traits rarely associated with heavy smoking. Yet, in that era, the boundary between health and image blurred easily, and Astaire's endorsement was seen as aspirational, not contradictory. His smooth moves and cigarette in hand became part of the glamorous mystique that tobacco brands love to promote. In hindsight, the pairing feels downright bizarre, a fitness-conscious dance legend telling America to light up. Today, it stands as one of the strangest intersections between talent, advertising, and old Hollywood's double standards. Boris Karloff, Jell-O. The very same man who brought Frankenstein's monster to life also became, in one of advertising's great curveballs, the voice of Jell-O. Boris Karloff's deep, unmistakable tone, so often associated with terror and the supernatural, was used in a series of Jell-O radio commercials in the 1940s and 50s. Imagine the master of horror, reassuring children and homemakers that dessert could be delicious and fun. The result was a curious mix of comforting and creepy, as if Karloff was always about to follow up a recipe with a ghost story. The campaign worked, making Jell-O seem a little more magical and a lot more memorable. It's a perfect example of how a star's public persona could be turned upside down for a sales pitch. For Karloff, it was just another role, one that helped turn a horror icon into an unlikely ambassador of family-friendly fun. Groucho Marx, Fleischmann's Yeast. Groucho Marx, legendary for skewering authority.
Really, I just wear well.
Hey, you use right guard too, huh? The super dry one, huh?
And turning every situation into a joke, made an especially odd pitchman for Fleischmann's Yeast. In radio ads, Groucho was tasked with selling yeast not for baking, but for its supposed. He told Americans to eat Fleischmann's yeast for energy, blending dubious health claims with Groucho's razor-sharp humor. Listeners couldn't tell if it was parody or a real pitch, and sometimes neither could Groucho. Behind the scenes, He joked about the absurdity of the gig, but the contract and the paycheck were real. The campaign was awkward, funny, and ultimately short-lived, but it left its mark. It's still cited as a classic example of a celebrity endorsement so mismatched that the only thing holding it together was the sheer force of personality. Groucho could sell anything, even yeast, if only for a punchline.
Elizabeth Taylor, Whitman's Chocolates.
Each to his passion. What's in a name? Depends on the name.
Long before celebrity-branded chocolates were a thing, Elizabeth Taylor, already a star by her early teens, lent her name and image to Whitman's sampler. The print ads, which ran in the 1940s, showed a luminous, youthful Taylor encouraging fans to give their loved ones candy chosen by Elizabeth Taylor. The campaign was surprisingly innocent for a future icon who would become famous for her adult roles, 7 marriages, and bold style. Whitman's was trying to harness her fresh-faced charm and family appeal to sell a product that was already an American staple. The result? Slightly odd pairing of glamour and sugar, remembered as one of the earliest examples of Hollywood using wholesome, celebrity allure to sweeten the deal. For Taylor, it was just another milestone on her journey from child actress to Hollywood royalty.
James Stewart, Firestone Tires.
For his friend Henry Ford. You know, Harvey sold a lot of tires because Henry sold a lot of cars. Yeah.
James Stewart, known for his gentle everyman roles in classics like It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, seemed like the last guy you'd expect to find in a car commercial. But in the late 1950s, Stewart became the voice and face of Firestone Tires. His calm, sincere tone was used to sell durability and American trust in rubber. It was oddly captivating, America's most wholesome actor, earnestly talking about treads, grip, and performance. Viewers were left wondering why someone who always seemed to walk through small-town America was now encouraging them to rotate their tires. Stewart brought serious gravitas to the ads, but even so, the pairing was unexpected. He wasn't flashy or mechanical, just an honest face talking about safe driving. The ads are now viewed as charmingly weird, showing how even the most grounded, golden age actors could be looped into corporate Americana.
Vincent Price, Sunbeam Bread.
Taste. This is no ordinary bread. This is Sunbeam, the full measure.
Vincent Price, the master of horror, could send shivers down spines with a single line. So when he lent his chilling voice to Sunbeam bread commercials in the 1960s, audiences were understandably amused and bewildered. Instead of warning of haunted mansions or cackling over sinister plans, Price was suddenly selling the wholesome virtues of soft, fluffy bread to American families. The contrast couldn't have been sharper. Here was the king of macabre. Yet, it worked. Price's dramatic flair turned even a simple loaf into a memorable event. Fans still talk about these ads as delightful oddities, proof that even a horror legend could become the unlikely spokesman for comfort food. The partnership stands as one of advertising's most delightful mismatches, with Price's charisma making the everyday seem just a little bit spooky, and a lot more fun. Gary Cooper, Studebaker Automobiles.
Low prices now in effect, thanks to huge volume.
Gary Cooper, the strong, silent star of High Noon and dozens of classic westerns, was usually seen riding a horse, not driving a car. But that didn't stop Studebaker from making him the face of their automobile ads in the 1940s. In print and radio campaigns, Cooper brought his rugged, all-American persona to the showroom floor, encouraging fans to trade in their steeds for shiny new Studebakers. The sight of Hollywood's favorite cowboy next to a sleek sedan was enough to make anyone do a double take. Cooper's cool authority gave the brand a sense of reliability and adventure, even if it felt odd to see a man known for dusty trails pitching the modern comforts of a family car. The endorsement is a classic case of Hollywood image meeting Madison Avenue ambition, creating an ad campaign as memorable as any of Cooper's stoic stares. Betty Davis, Luster Cream Shampoo.
Creamy lather. Beautiful body.
Betty Davis, with her hypnotic eyes and take no prisoners screen presence, became a household name for dramatic roles, not beauty commercials. Yet in the 1940s and 50s, She stunned fans by endorsing Luster Cream shampoo. The print ads, featuring Davis's unmistakable gaze, pitched the product as the secret behind her legendary locks. It was a smart play by Luster Cream. If it was good enough for Davis, surely it would work for any aspiring starlet. The campaign played up Davis's dramatic persona, transforming a bottle of shampoo into a ticket to glamour. It was a little bit intimidating, a little bit aspirational, and totally Hollywood. The pairing might seem odd, but it worked, proving that even icons of intensity could sell a little softness when the camera and the contract called for it. Joan Crawford, Royal Crown Cola. Before her Pepsi years, Joan Crawford lent her Hollywood shine to Royal Crown Cola, making appearances in print ads and even at soda fountains to meet adoring fans. The pairing was unexpected. Crawford, always glamorous and a little intimidating, shilling a soda mostly popular with teenagers. Dressed to the nines, she posed with bottles of RC Cola, bringing old-school star power to a humble soft drink. Even after her allegiance switched to Pepsi, the RC ads lingered as a quirky artifact of a time when major stars would promote just about anything if the price was right. It was proof that the soft drink wars of mid-century America were fought not just in grocery aisles, but on the red carpet and in the pages of fan magazines, with Hollywood royalty leading the charge.
Marlene Dietrich, Lucky Strike cigarettes.
Marlene Dietrich, always the embodiment of cool detachment and old-world glamour, was a natural choice for cigarette ads, or so it seemed. But her partnership with Lucky Strike in the 1930s took celebrity endorsement to a new level of strangeness. The campaign didn't just show Dietrich smoking, it had her promoting the green packaging as a high-fashion accessory. Dietrich's sophisticated image was used to sell cigarettes not just as a habit, but as an essential part of style. The fusion of beauty, rebellion, and product placement was ahead of its time and a little bit bizarre. While the ads helped cement Dietrich's place in pop culture, they also set a precedent for how far brands would go to borrow a bit of stardust, even if it meant blending vices and virtues in one glamorous puff. Edward G. Robinson, Instant Maxwell House Coffee.
Instant Maxwell House. It's so much richer now, it makes a really good pot of coffee.
Edward G. Robinson, forever etched into film history as the gravel-voiced gangster of classics like Little Caesar, wasn't the kind of star you'd expect to find in your kitchen. But in the 1950s, there he was, on TV and in print, praising the virtues of Instant Maxwell House Coffee. It was jarring. The man who played snarling mob bosses and moral crusaders was now smiling over a steaming cup of freeze-dried coffee granules. In the commercials, Robinson's intense screen presence softened into a cheerful, reassuring pitchman, touting flavor and convenience. Fans of his tough guy image were baffled. Was this really the same actor who once snarled, "You dirty rat"? But for advertisers, that disarming contrast was the point. If he trusted instant coffee, so should you. Today, the campaign feels like a caffeinated contradiction, a hardened screen legend serving up smooth sips instead of sharp threats. From shampoo to cigarettes and even yeast, Golden Age Hollywood stars weren't just performers, they were unexpected pitchmen and women for some truly bizarre products. These oddball endorsements remind us that even the most glamorous icons weren't above lending their fame to a strange sales pitch. In the end, they sold more than products. They sold personas, leaving behind ads as unforgettable and as odd as the stars themselves.